As far as the real estate stuff goes, like we thought we were going to do rent by the room. We thought that we were going to do a BRRRR strategy. We thought that we were going to do short-term rentals, and we just flipped and flopped all over the place when we first did that. And it cost us a lot of time. And I think that the time that we were trying to figure out doing that is what cost us on the interest rate. And I think, the lesson that I learned from that is those things all happen for a reason. I mean, we got into midterm rentals and it's been great. So like it was an accident that we got into midterm rentals, and it was because of trying these other strategies first and interest rates like hiking up as we were like flailing around. So
welcome to the Kash Dash Show with Andre Galaviz. Long time due, Andre. We've been waiting for a year for this. You know that Andre and I have been in a coaching program with in the Jason Drees coaching program.
I didn't know it was for that long.
For
I mean, you mentioned
at least a year now, right?
at least a year, yeah.
So you guys have met virtually, but obviously never in person, right? Because Andre, you told us before we hit record, you're based out of Denver, Colorado, correct?
Right. Yep. Denver.
And now tell us about. Okay, so just to recap here, you and Ted were both in the who was the coach, or what was the coaching program you guys were in?
Yeah, so Jason Drees coaching. I got into Jason Drees, finding out about BiggerPockets, heard about Brandon Turner. Brandon had mentioned Jason a couple of times, and I jumped in. So
I love that. All right, so BP is also based out of Denver. Have you ever lightly stalked the headquarters there, or tried to network in air quotes with people walking out of the building? No. That didn't happen?
No, not at all. I mean, where they were and where I was at the time, and then, how they moved on and how I moved on. Yeah, I just never had an opportunity. Go to a lot of BiggerPockets meetups here and all of the
strong ones there, isn't there?
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet to go to those.
Yeah, they make it a pretty big hub. A lot of the names come in through here that are BiggerPockets regulars. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Now, okay, what was going on in your life prior to getting involved in real estate? So you have, Ted mentioned, and we talked a little bit before we started recording, that you have a software background. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was working for a company. It was a group of doctors, and I had just finished working for a group of lawyers. So that was really fun to switch out to that. When I started working with the doctors, I started off in their call center, and I also have a tech background. So within probably about a couple of years of working with their call center and building their call center out, I wrote a job description for myself to manage their CRM and their systems and their integration. They accepted that, and then that started my more of a focus into the tech stuff. So I spent about 8.5 years doing that.
Wait, did you write that as basically a job application? Or
yeah.
Did I get that right? So you created...
No. I wrote... So I started off in the call center. I built that out. They didn't know what they were getting into hiring me, right? Because I had a tech background already. And so I built out their call center, and then I said, these are the other things that your company needs. And I read out a job description, and they accepted it.
So you gave yourself a raise just by coming in and being like, and also you guys need this.
I kind of doubled my salary.
Wow. I love how you covered your mouth there too. That's great. That's crazy. I don't know that I've ever. I was in recruiting for 20 years. That was my jobby job before I ended up leaving that and going into real estate full time. And I don't know that I've ever heard somebody describe it like that. So you saw problems in a job, a place you were working, and came to them with a bunch of solutions, and they're like, "You're right, we'll do it."
Can we do that? Yeah. Can we do that in our own companies?
We'd have to get somebody to actually open the email and look at it, I think, to make that. Well, that's crazy. So, okay. So how long did you do that? How long did you stay in that gig?
So, I just left that gig. I got laid off last August. So I was there for just 2 months shy of a decade.
Hey guys, this is Ted with the Kash Dash Show. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. I gotta get back to this Rio group. Everybody say hi. Yeah!
Dang. Okay. How did that feel getting the old pink slip? Is that what they call it? No. What is that when you fire somebody?
I don't know.
We'll call it a black letter day.
Black letter day. I don't know what it is. I should know this.
It's definitely not a red letter day.
So what was that like? You've been there for 10 years, given your blood, sweat, and tears, changed the company trajectory through call center.
Create your own position.
And finding a lot of problems that you knew how to solve. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, thanks for your help. Here you go.
Yeah. I actually worked myself out of the job. because the thing that I built, we moved it into a different CRM product, Salesforce. And when we moved everything into Salesforce and they knew that it was going to take off in Salesforce, they did a reduction in workforce. They're actually looking to sell the company. And so I have UARs in the company. And so I'm looking for them to sell the company too. And, honestly, I think because of the coaching that I had already done, we were talking about that with like Ted, I'd already been in that coaching for like 6 or 8 months, something like that. I took it as a positive thing and it ended up being that for me. So
What year was that?
that was last year. So August,
okay.
August of last year. So, and that's kind of when that's the first time that I found out that the real estate that we had invested in was actually going to sustain our living, right? Like there were very few cutbacks that we did, but the real estate was like just a nice little switch over, and I started focusing on building a product. So
When did you start investing in real estate?
shortly after COVID, so it was during COVID that I had
All really recent then.
yeah. So sure, like COVID was really the thing that started all of this, and it was because at that point in time, again, I was working for physicians, and it was one main office that did marketing, and then they took those leads and referred them out to affiliates across the network. And so there were probably about 85 affiliates at the time. And with all of them shutting down and all of the services shutting down, they really thought that they were going to reduce their workforce then. So that was kind of my first glimpse into like, well, I could really lose my job here. What else can I do? And that's when I started finding real estate, doing a bunch of studying, research, reading books, watching videos and podcasts.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like to dig into this a little bit more because I'm going through. I have a junior in high school. It's about ready to, between junior year, senior year, summer, and she's looking at career options and what she wants to go to school for. And I've got a 14-year-old that is in 8th grade, and AI is really scaring a lot of people, including kids that are wanting to be a lot more choosy about what career path they're selecting because of the danger of job elimination.
Sure.
We're kind of in that vein with you, and it's not the same thing, but there's always that risk, right? And like when you started thinking about this, like I have a real risk to my livelihood here and my income and my ability to pay my bills and keep my household happy and all that stuff. What was your first step? Did you have real estate on the mind from before that, or were you like, I don't know what to do? How can I mitigate this risk and say, okay, I need to be safe, protect my income stream, pay for my bills, make my family happy, all those things. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so it was the latter. I mean, so if you go back, COVID hits, but this is after I'd already given myself like doubled my salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd gone from like half to like, a full salary. And so that made it really scary. We hadn't really thought about real estate before. I was actually looking for ways that I could mitigate that risk and didn't really know. We had accidentally gotten into real estate. My brother, myself, and my mom bought a place for my mom, and it was half of a duplex. And so, I had that experience, and then we bought our house. And so that was kind of our second experience and all of that. But I didn't really know anything too much about real estate, except, we needed a house for our family, right? To like start raising and growing our family. And that was about it. So
when you arrived at, okay, I want to explore real estate further, you started Googling, or I don't know if ChatGPT was around then. I can't remember when that came out. Was that 2024?
Not yet.
3?
yeah,
Anyway.
no, it's too recent. Yeah.
Okay, so you're Googling and you were like real estate investing, and then you come across BiggerPockets. What happened?
Yep.
What happened when that occurred?
Yeah, I think BiggerPockets really kind of blew it up for me. It was Brandon Turner, David Green had just come on, and so I started like looking at those books. The Burr book had just come out, and so I started reading that. Long distance real estate, so getting into all of those, and just being new and fresh, not really knowing. So like long distance Burrs or something like that sounded attractive to me. But in another life, I produced events. And one thing that I knew from that experience was it's much harder to do something in someone else's backyard than to do it in your own backyard. And so that led me to wanting to just do it here. Well, COVID had broke open, right? And so they started lifting the shelter in place and all of that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the 3% that we refied to while we were during lockdown and all of that stuff, great that we had that less than 3%. but now it shot up to 5% almost overnight, right? So we had that lock-in effect where we weren't going to leave our house and we had to figure out something else to do, right? And so we're like, well, you know what? We could get a HELOC on this house. We could remodel the downstairs. The upstairs seems like it's more attractive as a 3-2. We'll build out a 2-1 for a family of 4, and we'll live down there for like 6 months, 8 months, and see how this goes. So we went from, wanting to sell the house and get another house that would be an investment property to being, in the same house and hearing footsteps above us. So
I think, and you having a software and a business background, I went through, and the only reason I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this is because I think it's so interesting, and a lot of people that Ted and I talk to, and I'm sure you do on a regular basis, is people are in a dissatisfying career. They figure out that they don't have time freedom. There's risk of layoffs. They invest a lot of time into a company, and then all of a sudden they could get the rug pulled out from under them. But when you start exploring real estate, it's the equivalent of drinking from a fire hose, because there are so many different aspects of real estate that you could do. There's short-term rentals, long-term rentals, midterm rentals. There's fix and flip. There's wholesaling, like you name it, commercial, all the stuff, right? And I'm thinking back to when real estate even occurred to me that it was something I could possibly do, because I always thought that people, like, you got to have like so much money to do real estate. I didn't even look into it. When I finally did, I read every book that was in print at that time, and I just got overwhelmed until the point where I decided what fit for me. And I'm wondering what that was like for you, because I think this is a standard process, or not a standard process maybe, but people explore it and then you have to decide at some point, because education can become a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year thing that you never end up pulling the trigger. When did you get to the point where you decided? And I'm not pretending that you probably went through a Venn diagram on what made sense for you and your family and your life and what you wanted to do, but what was that process like for you when you finally decided?
Yeah, I think when we went through that same thing, right? Like it was burst strategy or rent by room. We started to go to meetups. We met a couple of real estate agents because, again, we were trying to move out of there. So, I think we accidentally fell into medium term renting, and we accidentally fell into just renting one place versus doing a rent by room. We had a coach, a mentor. We actually paid him to show us the ropes on rent by room, and we were trying that strategy. We had like key locks on every door in the 3 bedrooms and all of that. But, after attempting that, and that was really difficult. We never landed it. I mean, I think I tried for probably about 3 to 6 weeks trying to rent by room and, getting on Furnish Finder and like listing all the rooms separately, doing all that kind of stuff. And when that didn't hit, we kind of knew a couple of different things. We knew we were going to be moving out of there. It was in Lakewood. They were changing the regulations to where you had to be primary if you wanted to do short-term rentals. So that knocked short-term rentals out. Rent by room wasn't really working out for us. So we knew we had to do a 30-day at least. And then it just kind of fell into it being midterm rental. So that has turned out to be the best thing. I love midterm rental. I think it's the Goldilocks of any strategy. When you put house hacking and midterm rental together, it's kind of like a super boost with your revenue, with your cash flow. So yeah, it's been really awesome. And so, starting off, I felt like, okay, cool, we can do this. And then hearing people above us, it was like, well, I got a family of 4 downstairs. It kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But then as we got used to doing that, it was weird when there wasn't somebody upstairs. Wait, they haven't checked in yet. Like, hold on a second. Like, are they coming? Like, So yeah, it's been cool. It's been really cool.
Can you timestamp for us when you made the decision and then move forward with starting to market your property as a midterm rental? Like, was this 2020, 2021? It was about like 2021, whenever COVID had kind of like started lifting, because it really was that the thing that really forced us into what we were doing was the fact that we couldn't move out because interest rates were escalating very quickly, right? And so it wasn't 3% anymore. It was 5 and then 5.5, and then it got to like 6.5 and 7. So
I remember when it hit 5, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so high.
That was so weird. And the thing about it is too, like, you don't generally understand what's going on unless you have a couple years of hindsight. because COVID was that way. None of us had ever gone through anything like that in our lives, and then we're just like, okay, what is the government telling us to do? And then there's some doubt that creeps in, and then you see like people react really strongly one way or the other. Like, and then it's the same thing with business and life and everything else. Like you have different camps, and you have to believe in what you're doing and then execute on your plan for it. And you guys did that. Now, one thing I do want to explore a little bit with you is you have a family. It's not like you're a single guy in your early 20s and you're like, oh man, I'm just trying to save some money or pay, save a little bit of money on rent, so I'm going to rent out a room or a couple of rooms. This is a whole family dynamic, and you have to consider safety and who is actually living upstairs or downstairs, because you guys moved into the basement, right? You remodeled it, moved into it, rented out.
After you spend about $50,000 on a basement, you call it a lower level. Like that, you have moved on to a lower level living space, not a basement.
It's a garden level estate. That's what you.
Garden level is it? Yeah. So at first, and especially like having people from Airbnb, because Airbnb, you're not doing the background check, you're not doing the lease agreement, all of those different things. So there was this adjustment period, getting used to those things, but then real quickly, it's funny because when you live in one of the two units and you see those people from time to time, you get to realize that the world is, sometimes a better place than, media paints it out to be. Like there's good people in the world and they're living below you or they're living above you.
Yeah.
So this is why I've turned off the media recently. I've just had to have a media break because I can't handle it.
If it bleeds, it leads, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Now, okay, so taking this a step further, what was the temperature level similar to yours with your spouse on doing this? Because I'm just picturing my house, and I would get a hard pass if I even brought it up. But it's all relative, right? Like everybody's got a different tolerance level for different things, and marriages work differently, and not everybody communicates the same way, and all those things. What was that conversation like with your wife when you first started exploring this?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because like I think I gotta say, Tiffany is the kind of person that just rolls with things. She's very supportive. She believes in, if this is something you want to do, I'm behind it. I support it. And that's just how she is. That's how she's always been. And that's what's gotten us to the point where we are today, right? Was she completely on board with it? Not completely on board. She was nervous, right? And I think the safety factor was really kind of one of those things that was kind of a little bit unnerving to her. Like our son and our daughter are downstairs. There's these people above us and stuff. But I think pretty quickly, she warmed up to it, knowing not only what we were doing was working, but seeing the cash flow and the benefit to that, right? At certain points, depending on higher season and things like that, we weren't paying to live there. That was being covered by our upstairs guests. So
yeah, no,
and it's a midterm. They're gonna be gone in a couple months, even if they suck.
I mean, honestly, though, it's kind of like, I mean, what's the difference between what you're doing and say living in an apartment building? Like you don't have any, you know what I mean? At least you have control over who's living above you on paper, and like Ted said, you got 3 months or maybe 6 months or whatever at best with that person living above you. So I get it. I just thought it was interesting to explore the practical aspects of that, because you're not somebody that's just starting out and doesn't have obligations and all that. It's a whole different ballgame then.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it was kind of a forced thing. We didn't plan on doing that. We planned on moving out, getting a house, making it a smaller house, taking some of that money and putting it into an investment property or buying a duplex, things like that. We were even looking at duplexes at the time, but we were striking out. So, yeah.
Andre, I feel you, man, because I did around that same time frame. I started getting the short term and midterm market. I call it flex rental. It's kind of like that hybrid between the two. And it saved my butt, because we have seasons here where it's really popular sometimes, not popular other times. So I could be able to do the short terms in the summer, switch to the midterms in the fall, winter, spring, right? And that way you're always maximizing the income. You're doing that obviously with your house, and you're kicking butt at it, making the money, and it's smart. I mean, if anybody has a short term or midterm, they should be looking at that blend, right?
Yeah.
But it's also it's difficult to manage because there's just not a lot of pricing systems out there. There's not a lot of things to help you with all that.
There is now.
Yeah, no, let's talk about that. So when you decided that, midterm rentals were going to be the way you wanted it to go, what were the resources available to you, and what has that developed into now?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, it hasn't changed much, right? There's long-term rental tools, and then there's the short-term rental tools, and there's nothing in between for the midterm rental market. And, like Ted is saying, people don't know how to price a midterm rental. You have to do a lot of slide and rule to figure that out. Like you go to Furnish Finder and you look at the pricing there. You look in your area, you go to Airbnb, you look for 30-day rentals, you look at the pricing there in your area. You could try to use AirDNA, but AirDNA is a short-term rental tool, so it's going by ADR, which is your average daily rate. So we're looking at something more closely to AMR, right? And you talked about seasonality. You have an average monthly rate, and that's based on your seasonality, right? And so you could be averaging like, $2,500 a month or something like that. And, in the summer months, you're making 35 or something. So the tools were spreadsheet, rent ready for the background checking. I figured out key check because Furnish Finder started to offer that. So I tried that for the payment processing piece. I used spreadsheets for the finances and just put them into different tabs so that at least I didn't have to open up another tab, things like that. So I just started looking around and I didn't find much that was either A, midterm rental, or B, that included everything that needed to be in there, and having the tech background that I did. When that's your job, to build a system and take all of these pieces that are just fragmented, these tools that are just used all over the place, and put that into one platform that everyone can use, which is basically what I did for that 8.5 years of my job. I started looking around to see if there was anything like that for midterm rentals, and there wasn't. So that's kind of when I got the idea to start building something.
I am absolutely. I mean, we interviewed Jeff Hurst with Furnish Finder, and I am shocked with everything he's trying to build with that company that they didn't create some sort of system like this.
I know. Yeah.
Like one thing I was on Andre on our last coaching call. I'm like, dude, I was like, you need to hook up with Jeff.
Yeah. Hey, you just write your own job description again. It will just dust off the old resume and do it over. Okay, so you did this in your own home first, remodeled the basement. You guys moved in there, rented out the top.
Yep.
What was next? You mentioned you have 3 properties, 4 units. So you said, okay. Now, actually, before I do this, did you have a bunch of cash saved up that you paid for the reno and everything else for the unit that you already owned? Or did you do anything creative with that, like get a line of credit, or like what was that like?
Yeah, so I got a HELOC on the house. And again, this was kind of from the books and the things that I had studied, to get money out of the house and then utilize that to do the remodel and then get paid back on that.
Yep.
So that's what we did. We just followed these guides, right? I'm preparing to get a HELOC on our current primary, which we've also house hacked. But this was technically our second property. Our family property was the half duplex. We've moved into this single family home, remodeled the downstairs and started living in it. We got the HELOC to do the remodel. And the first time, just because there was a lot to that remodel, building an extra room and, rearranging the bathroom, and then an unexpected, bathroom upstairs that needed to be remodeled. And so that ended up costing us about $52,000 to do it on that one. This last one that we did cost about $30,000, but the $30,000 was all inclusive of the furnishings and all of that stuff. So that's actually pretty good.
That's why his place looks so badass in the background.
Right.
Yeah, he had to set it up for an Airbnb.
Yeah, I have.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I have background jealousy for your setting there, because that's the wall that we wanted for this studio, and then we're like, man, those are expensive. The whole little vertical strips of wood. But we were looking at the ones that actually had the sound deadening in the background. That's what made it expensive.
True.
We were trying to be fancy, but
yeah.
That's this. Yeah, that's what we did. And you're right. I mean, we set this up, and the downstairs is designed pretty much the same way with the same kind of accent walls so that you can rent it as one unit or split it into two. So
Did you hire a designer for all that, or did you do it yourself?
my wife.
Yeah, she's got the eye, huh?
Yeah. I mean, all of I'm really stoked because all of the places that we rent out, we get great reviews. People say a lot of really great stuff. So yeah, it's been great. And the design is all my wife. She picks out the stuff. It's all mid-century, and
I wish my wife had like an ounce of design ability.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
My wife is very good at knowing what she does not like.
Yes.
That's the problem. Okay, so Andre, what happened next? So you guys did this. You had a proof of concept. You proved to your wife that you weren't going to move in serial killers above you, and you said, "Hey, let's do this again." What does that look like for you?
yeah, so at the time we didn't get a short-term rental license because even though it was our primary, we knew we were going to be moving out of it. We had spent almost a year and a half in the property, found another place, did the same thing, analyzing, like just underwriting properties and looking for something that would be good. We looked in the Arvada area because Arvada, Colorado was a little bit more loose with short-term rental. And so we were going to try our hand at like doing a short-term rental on this one. Moved in, did the same thing, just remodeled the downstairs. Again, it cost about $30,000 to do that. And we've been living in the upstairs this time and renting out the downstairs because, our lesson learned for the other one, and you're right, like we had figured out kind of the cookie cutter solution for us. But we also realized when we moved out of there that we were renting the downstairs 2-1 at like 3 times the rate as the upstairs 3-2. So
Really?
yeah. Yep.
Is that
2-1s are hotter
That's
properties too. Yeah, higher demand with a 2-1. They're like if you have a bunch of 2-1s, you're gonna have really really low vacancy rates on those. So
interesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I found that with my 4-1 that I was struggling with any midterms, and it was just straight, perfect for short term.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a 2-1, it did pretty good. But my 1-1s were killing it in the midterm, and then I also had I had a very large 5-bedroom house, and that one would bring in big construction crews, but they would always just wreck the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they were rough on it. So the 1-1s were like money for me when it came to this. And sometimes I could rent out like, oh, we needed 2 places. I'm like, hey, each one of your workers can have their own spot, and you're in the same building. And it worked out really well. But the 2-1s though, that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, 2-1's the money. Yeah,
like 3-1s I knew were blah.
Let's okay. So if you're in Denver, would you consider, based on all the places you've lived and about, would you consider Denver to be a high cost of living area or average?
I think it's high cost for sure.
I would agree.
Yeah.
We live in Omaha, Nebraska, which is not a high cost of living area, quote unquote, even though it seems like it. You in Denver, if you're going to go out and buy, let's take your second property, for example. So you bought it, like, what does something like that cost? You bought a property that you could operate basically as a midterm. You live in the basement, you have somebody above you. What is the price tag on something like that?
Yeah, so that was 2018. So that was nice, right? So it's 2018, and it was refied down to a 3%. So that was I think we bought in on that one at about 390, 395, something like that.
That's not terrible.
No, it was not terrible for 2018. The next property that we bought, that was 630, 640.
Ow.
So
yeah, not quite 100% more, but knocking on the door.
Yeah, not great. So it's a 6.2. So we were able to split that and do a 3-1 and
6.2. That's a big house in Denver, right? So that's Denver-ish.
Yeah,
because I know there's a lot of smaller towns around there and different areas that allow short term, midterm, some that don't. Like Denver's a little weird. I spent a lot of time in Boulder. I don't know if you ever go to Boulder.
That's a vacation city that you think they would allow the short-term midterms.
Yeah, right?
I mean, it's a vacation town. You want to go there, right?
Yeah. No, they went the other way on that one.
Really? So I mean, they're really strict on it then. On what's the laws down there?
Yeah, so it's really creeping in. It has to be your primary. And let's see, what are some of the other things? If you have an ADU, you can't short term the ADU. You can short term the main house, but not the ADU. I think I'm right on that one. Yeah, and so there's different rules, and they're cracking down even more. So I honestly think where it's going to go is that they'll probably say, well, you can only do it a certain amount of time over the course of a year. But they're really strict on the primary, and that's kind of creeping out to all of these other places, right?
Even no grandfather clause.
No, I don't think that there's a grandfather clause. I don't know short term as well. We've just been in the midterm space the whole time, but I don't think that there's any kind of grandfather clause on that.
Now, with midterms, is there laws against that on the books? I haven't heard any laws against midterms yet anywhere.
Yeah, I don't talk about that much exactly for that reason. I mean, I knock on wood every time we talk, I talk to anybody about that kind of stuff because I think it'd be really hard for them to do that, right? Basically, you have a month-to-month rental. And the reality of the situation is if you give me 30 days to move out, I'm going to allow you to break your lease. So it's the same thing as having somebody in for 3 months and knowing that they're going to be there for 3 months.
Yeah.
But then with a midterm, though, if you have rental inspections in your city, do you guys have that in Colorado? Mm-hmm. Does your midterms get rental inspected?
Nothing that I've seen, nothing that I've experienced. Again, knock on wood.
And then when the city wants to know, is this a rental? Do you tell them it's a midterm? And then they're like, we don't need to worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had no problems.
Interesting. Because a midterm can be a year rental, right?
Sure.
So that's kind of shocking.
Yeah. If you get somebody that's a year rental in a midterm because they want something furnished and they're going to be here for a year, like a good example of that would be like Colorado Rockies move in, right? Players get traded, and so they'll look for 6 months minimum or maybe a year, something like that. So... yeah, it's nice. You get the midterm price, and you're happy for a year.
Because I talked to a city official once, and they told me that the midterms are no different than a standard rental property, in their opinion.
Really?
Yeah, because it is a 30-plus day stay. There is a lease in place, so it can get rental inspected here in our town, and so that's why they're looking at it, and that's why you can get past the short term is because they look at it as a short version of a traditional lease.
Yep. Yeah, it's towing the line between hotel and basically a standard long-term rental. Like that's there's the delineation. But yeah, a lot of it'll be interesting to see how this plays out across the U.S. because every state's different, and even every city is different. So you'll have some that go really hard after short-term rentals, and like Omaha has been in the news real recently for stuff that's happened with short-term rentals, and like the city is really trying to implement some like ordinances and things like that that are going to make them a lot more difficult to operate. And so a lot of people are like, well, I'll just pivot to midterm rentals. And they're probably going to try and close that loophole at some point, I would guess, but it's a lagging thing.
This is why I anticipate happening. I think the short terms are going to end up being legal. I mean, it's happening.
Illegal
everywhere.
Or legal?
Illegal.
Okay.
And the short-term business is going to go out, and then the midterm rental companies are going to get all the short-term people, and then they're going to say, hey, we have a minimum week stay for your 1, 2, 3 days, whatever it is, and then they'll be renting through the midterm program, and people will say, yep, you can stay here for a few days. We don't care. And it's going to happen.
Sure.
I mean, it's a given.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like it really also depends on like who's in office at the time and what their agenda is. Like that's why it's so hyper local, and whether in their touristy market or not, because like Orlando, for example, or other cities that get a lot of conferences, a lot of travel for leisure. Those are a lot more like embracing of short-term rental operators than other cities are. So like you take Omaha, which is traditionally more of a flyover, type of a city. We have some bigger events that happen, bigger in air quotes.
I'm getting $1,000 a night right now with Berkshire weekend.
Yeah, because there's Berkshire weekend, we have College World Series, and not a whole lot else.
Awesome.
Yeah, but we do get some heavy travel times at certain times of the year, but in the wintertime, I mean, Ted, you and I have talked about this over the years. It's like you get weekends and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Like you have a short-term rental, you're losing money in the winter, and you're making all your money in the spring and summer. That's it.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things. And you mentioned Boulder just a minute ago, and it's interesting because Boulder is pretty strict on their short-term rental laws, right? Until you get Sundance Film Festival in there. And now they're like, okay, except for Sundance Film Festival. So they're allowing everybody to do it during Sundance because, they know that they're going to, because it's business into the town. So they're like, for this period of time, there is no short-term rental ban. You can do it because we want the business in Boulder. So
and there's not, at least in Omaha, when you have CWS and Berkshire weekend, there's not enough hotel capacity.
Right.
Yeah. And like I could see this being a provision carved out in the tax code too, like the Augusta rule. I don't know if you know about that, but like you have 2 weeks, basically you can rent out your primary residence and not pay any income taxes on it. You can actually rent it out to a business that you own. So it'd be interesting if there's like a Sundance or Boulder carve out in that whole tax code. Eventually,
businesses.
We don't like any of this unless it benefits.
Unless it's Sundance, except for this period. Yeah,
but that's bullshit. You know what? We're just trying to make a living here, and costs are skyrocketed. We're trying to make it ends meet, and especially if you're somebody that may be struggling because you paid $1 million for a house that probably should be selling for $600,000, and you want to, I want to do some short-term, midterm rentals on it, but no, the city is not going to be okay. Except when we can't handle capacity because we actually need you now.
Mm-hmm. Right?
F off.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
There's a couple of things that they're doing with that. So the other thing that I'll mention is ADUs, and so Denver and Colorado, just in general, Denver specifically has gotten really loose on ADUs. And so they're allowing a lot of ADUs to be built. Now there's some, still some specs, as far as how far from the fence line and, how big the lot has to be, things like that. But it's funny that things turn this way because, again, reading through all of these books, I'm like, we're going to buy these properties and then we're going to stack up on these properties, build out an ADU on a couple. So all of our lots are 7,500 or larger for that reason. And now ADU laws are becoming really friendly to people building those ADUs. And so good time to capitalize on that.
That just happened here also.
Yeah. Based on where you guys are right now, so 4 total midterm rental units, 3 properties, you've done house hacking a couple of times. What do you see? Like, are you guys really leaning into real estate, or are you like, is this more of a lifestyle type, we can, mitigate our bills, get to a point where we're net neutral on a monthly basis and don't have to worry about like where's the income coming from?
Sure.
Are you gonna like what's the path of progress for you in regards to real estate? And if you're not gonna buy a whole bunch more, like I get it because you have a lot of other stuff going on too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that was my path, and it was for time freedom and money freedom, and then looking for purpose freedom, right? And that was really kind of the line that I was going towards. And you're right. Now it's kind of shifted because I realized that, the market needs something like a tool for medium-term rentals. And it was really that I needed a tool for my medium-term rentals because I had gotten to 3 and the book started getting messy and the follow-up started getting messy and all of these different things. So it was really out of necessity that I started to put it together. I didn't want, it wasn't anything that I was trying to do. I didn't want to do it. If I found a tool, I would have bought it. But coming from the world that I came from, knowing what I know, I couldn't just cobble together a bunch of tools knowing that at the end of it, I wasn't going to get what I really wanted. And that was bookkeeping and CPA. Like I literally wanted to export a document and hand it to a CPA and nothing out there, no matter who says differently, they don't have it. They just don't have it. So my plan was to continue to buy single family before I got laid off, right? Because the revenue that was coming from the rentals, that cash flow was just going straight back into the bank account. And then we would build up and put it down on another property and, start to do that. So before we could do that with our next property that was going to be our first true investment property where we weren't living in it, we were paying 25% down, all of that good stuff. I lost my job and that changed the direction of things. So I'll still do co-hosting. One of the other things that I realized I built a community out here because nobody had done that either, right? And so I kept looking around for just something to join into so that it wasn't taking a lot of my time to do that thing. And I started getting like overflow of leads. And so I would look to people that I'd connected with on Facebook. And I had done that for so often, that I just decided to put together a messenger group. And that messenger group now has grown to about 50 people. We have like a lead matching channel. We have a general channel where we talk about like, revenue or regulation or, different things like that. So there's about 4 channels right now. We just, started a marketplace channel because people want to sell off their furniture from an STR or something like that. So
now you're talking about channels. Is this on is this WhatsApp or like how do you create what you're talking about?
Yeah, so on Messenger, this was one of the guys in the group. He's like, hey, I'll create a couple of channels for you, So I didn't know anything about that. We just had our main chat. And then people kept coming up with, hey, I've got a property. I need to, get that filled. Or, hey, I've got somebody that is looking for a property. And so he just built out another channel for lead matching. And then it kind of grew from there.
And what platform, though? Like
Messenger.
Facebook Messenger.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Wow,
it's also called Meta
for the old guys.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
and gals.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ted mentioned to me, and we just briefly touched on it before we jumped on air here, that you had a pretty significant health scare recently.
Yeah.
What happened? When was that? And can you tell us the story?
Yeah. So I'll go back to what I talked about earlier, which was, the first time I had a scare of losing my job, and that was during COVID, because it's a group of physicians. They do in-person evaluations, and all of that had like disappeared overnight. So I'm like, man, and that's how I got into real estate. So it's kind of funny and crazy and luck. Like the whole coaching thing really has brought me through all of this. I give a lot of credit to the coaching because I understood things in a different way. I had a different frame that I saw things through. Fast forward to August of last year, August 2025, and they did finally start looking at layoffs. They were cutting people in the marketing department first. I saw my boss go. I saw another person in marketing go. And then I saw the CEO of the company go. And I'm like, okay, I'm on this top line. My title was a director title. And so, yeah, they told me that they were going to let me go. Well, every other decade I had spent doing entrepreneurial stuff. My brother and I have owned a salon. My brother and I have produced events. We've done these different things in life. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to say goodbye to the W-2 world, and I'm just going to continue on. So my thinking was that I would let my insurance lapse. But before I did that, I was going to get my eye exam done, my physical done, and all this kind of stuff. And so I went in to get the physical, and the doctor said, hey, have you gotten a colonoscopy recently? And I was like, oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and throw that on my list. So I went in, did a colonoscopy. I'm like sitting there. My wife, I remember this. My wife dropped something on the floor. And I said, well, how did I do, doc? And she's like, I'll wait for your wife to sit down. And I was like, okay, this does not sound good. And he's like, we've found rectal cancer. And I said, you're kidding. So like, yeah, here's what happens next. We take it to pathology, we figure out what's going on, we diagnose you. So that was August 4th. By August 4th, I had several conversations with the then COO of the company. The CEO was removed from the company and now is dealing with the COO, who I'd dealt with for a number of years. I'd worked under him before and all of that kind of stuff. And so, again, through the coaching, I'm like, look, I understand that this isn't personal, that you have to do this thing, right? By the time I had gotten that diagnosis, that same day that I learned that I had stage 3 rectal cancer, I was scheduled to talk with John, the COO of the company. At that point, like I literally broke down. I was in tears. I was saying like, look, I don't want to lose my job, have to deal with Cobra. And deal with chemo and radiation. So that's where it got really tough, and I just basically said, look, if there's anything you can do for me, that would be great, so that I could just not have to deal with all of these things at the same time, right? And it took maybe like a couple of weeks or something like that for them to come back. And they said, you know what, we can't change the date that we have to let you go, but we can cover your COBRA so that you can, get treatment and do all of these things. Yeah, so that's what I did. I said, look, whatever you guys can do, great, awesome. So I knew that I was going to be out. I knew that I was going to be facing chemo and radiation and all that kind of stuff. My coaching, so this is crazy because the performance coaching says, instead of making a decision on something, sometimes instead of making that decision, you need to break, you need to stop, and you need to like just figure things out, So I did that. I told my wife, look, I'm going to stop what I'm doing here. I'm going to take off to Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. How funny, right? Truth or Consequences is where I'm going to like figure this out. And a friend of mine out there, who I'd known for decades, right? I've known her for a long time. She's kind of like a little sister. Well, she's into, natural medicine and different things like that. So when I told her about the diagnosis, she basically told me like, hey, why don't you come down here, spend a couple of weeks. I ended up spending 18 days there. And the whole time I was journaling, walking, meditating, running, talking with her, talking with this like person I can only kind of call like a Shah woman, like this lady that's just of the earth. And what I figured out is I got really centered there. I really figured out that it is the quality of life, not the quantity of life. And I learned something that I call God's plan, where no matter what, like, you could completely dodge a bullet one day and step off a curb and get hit by a bus the next day. God's plan, like it's going to be what it's going to be. And so I came back very clear-headed, and I had released all of the fear, and I'd gotten a lot of things out, like emotionally, that I needed to, and understanding that I was holding on to things, right? And that's what got me there. And I came back and I decided, you know what? I'm not doing the chemo and the radiation. They inserted a port, they'd done all of those things, but I said, you know what? I'm going to do the surgery. And because I had gone and I immediately changed my diet and I went down there and I did all those things, you can't really prove or disprove any of this stuff. But I went through one surgery to remove everything. They successfully did that. They removed 23 lymph nodes. All of the lymph nodes came back negative. When they did this test after surgery, like they picked this, certain date to do it, and they tested all of that stuff, and I came back negative for any cancer cells or cancer DNA in my body. And so it took me 6 months through the process from August to about March of this year. And then I just had my reversal surgery about eight weeks ago. And to this day, like right now, like I've had 2 tests, and both of those tests have come back negative for cancer. So
yes,
how crazy is that? So I lose my job. I find out that I have cancer. And during that time, I'm talking to my brother, and I'm saying, hey, I've got this idea, and this thing has come up and whatever, and I want to get out of the job. And we start working on this tool, and, we're on this different path. It's crazy.
All right. So Andre, tell us about MTRO Pro. You said you love acronyms. Tell us about the software product. You mentioned you kind of collaborated with somebody on this. Is that right? Or how did this get born out of need for your own solution?
Yeah. So, it's I follow Alex Ramosi, and he says pain, passion, or profession. And this ended up being all 3 of those things for me. But the thing that was like more of an emphasis was the fact that it was a pain. It started to become a pain to manage and keep up with leads for, at the time, 3 properties. I juggled 2 pretty well. That was cool. When I got to 3, it became really hard. I was using just a bunch of different tools. Like I said, one thing for signatures on leases, another thing for the leases themselves, another thing for background check, another thing for payments. And then I had spreadsheets and just all of these different things, texting on my phone and sending messages through Furnish Finder. And I'm like, man, there's got to be something better than this. And so I started looking around, and I saw a bunch of the long-term rental tools that are out there. No names mentioned, because I think at some point they're going to be like, damn it, why didn't we think of this? And then I saw a lot of the short-term rental tools out there. And again, they all fell short, like either by pricing or communication or payment structure, like receiving the payments. And now it's kind of narrowed down to a couple of things that are super important to who we're discovering our clients to be, which is midterm rental operators, right? And that's where the acronym comes from. MTRO was just that I was typing midterm rental operator all the time. And so I put in parentheses MTRO, and then it just kind of stuck. And then instead of calling it MTRO, we just started saying Metro because that was easier. And then it, just kind of stuck with MTRO Pro. But the tool itself is, just built out of, having a pain point myself and needing something myself. Like I said, I had the cancer diagnosis. My brother came in to help me with like my surgery and help me with like my kids and help out my wife and things like that and just support me. And as we were talking over all of this other stuff happening, he said, that sounds like a really great idea. We started to do some research. And as we did that research, we didn't find any midterm rental application specifically for midterm rentals. And so we started figuring out how to build it. So I partnered with my brother. He is in the NFT, blockchain, and Bitcoin space as well. So he knows techie guys there. So he's known for about 3 years, a guy that lives in Italy, his name's Sebastiano. He became our lead developer. And this guy is lightning fast at building stuff. He created an AI bot. So you talk about people taking your jobs. He actually built a bot to help him with his job. And so he created an AI bot, and between the two of them, they were really, humming along. I got a couple of stateside devs, one that was going to help me with like beta testing stuff. And then another guy that knew like website stuff and connections, like integration stuff. And so now we're a team of 5. We've recently brought on an investor advisor, and we are in beta, and we're looking at releasing the product early June.
Wow. So this is like a month away, like literally a month away.
Right about time it airs.
That's crazy. Yeah. If you're looking for any sponsorship opportunities, Ted will talk to you about that. I'm kidding. But any of you catching this episode, so keep an eye out for that. It's MTRO Pro is the name of the software. If you're in the midterm rental space, like Andre mentioned, it's so hard to find really good data out there and information just about how to operate it. You mentioned Furnish Finder. We've had Jeff Hurst on. I don't remember what episode it was, but he was a great interview, and he said a lot of the same things. Like he felt he can make a lot of changes. He came into that business with basically the same idea of like, here's what you guys need, and here's what I'm going to need to do it. So he kind of wrote his own resume, and then I don't know if he's going to write himself out of a job with that, but you did, but. Okay, so if I'm somebody that's like, hey, I've heard really good things about short-term rentals, except the place I live in doesn't allow them. Long-term rentals won't cash flow because I'm in a little bit higher cost of living market. And that is this resonating with you? Is this your profile? So midterm rentals can be a good option because you have a 30-day minimum. Typically, you're going to get people that are traveling for work. I would say that's probably the main category. Is that fair?
Sure.
You have you have people in the medical profession that get assigned to contracts. You've got people in construction that get assigned to data center builds, longer term construction things. You have insurance displacements. People have a house that burned down or has problems. They need, somewhere to live for a few months. So these are all your target, renter pool for those. And getting resources to figure out even how to do that. How do you write a lease? How do you find people, that want to rent from you? How do you get your name out there? All those kind of things. Are there legalities? Can your software help with all this?
Yeah, so the software helps the person that is just coming in who has one property, and it helps the person that has like 100 plus properties. We're really looking at the market in terms of everything that it is. Since I've been in the business for 4.5, almost 5 years, I know the pain points. I know the things that I want. But then also, reading the books, but then I'm also in Facebook groups. And then I join a school group, and the school group has a couple of guys in it that have 25 properties in New Jersey and 40 properties in LA. And we started to partner with those guys to become kind of like advisors to build out more of the app. So what MTRO Pro does and who it serves is if you're the first time person, you're just getting into midterm rental operations, you're going to be looking for a lease. You're going to be trying to figure out how to manage your leads. You're going to be figuring out how to process your payments. Our system does all of those things for you. So we created a framework. So even the first guy that's never done midterm rentals before and doesn't really know what they're doing could come into the tool and have a system to operate from. And that system is built by us. I'm one of the smaller guys, right? Because I only have 4 units, but we're also building it with bigger guys that have 40 units. And our beta group consists of people who have 20 units, 50 units, 100 units. And so, yeah, it's the tool that helps them to come into it and have resources behind them before they, really even have to look around and try to find those on their own.
Does it give you a landing page also?
Yes, it does.
That's huge because I remember I went through this whole debacle trying to get a website built for my midterms. Remember we had them on the
yes.
Oh my god! And in the end, I spent thousands and thousands of dollars, had no product. And nothing to show for it. But my biggest lead source besides Furnish Finder was we have data centers being built everywhere around here. At one point, I had over 10 electricians filling up all my midterms. Mm-hmm. So I was working deals out with the guys staying in my place to go put a flyer up in the union halls for me, and then I'd get lead sources back. I give them a bottle of whiskey, and but if I didn't have they'd text me, here's my pictures. Oh, here's my traditional lease. It's not a midterm lease. This is my regular year-to-year lease, but I'm going to change the terms on it. And it was very mom and pop feel.
Yeah, very choppy, right? Yeah. This is kind of like the guide for that. And not that we modeled it off of Airbnb, but we took some inspiration from how Airbnb works. And how Airbnb works is you go to a website, you find a place, you look for the dates, you pick the place, you pay for the place, and you get the keys. And so with midterm rentals, there's just a couple of extra steps in there. You go to look for the place, and this would be other tools like Furnish Finder where they would look for them. Where we come in is the tool or the operations system that helps the owner past that point, right? And so they look for the place, they find the place, and then they want to book the place. Well, that's where you can have all your communications within MTRO Pro. You have your background check within MTRO Pro. You have your lease within MTRO Pro, and then you have your payments within MTRO Pro. And then you also have your guest communications, your smart lock automation, your vendor communications, so all of your cleaners. So I'll run you through kind of like an example of how
I'm sold already. By the way, this sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so funny because everybody that I talk to, they say, "Oh, for that alone." The common thing that people say is, "Well, that alone, like you had me at hello, you had me at a unified inbox, right?" And so I'll run you through a scenario. Somebody on Furnish Finder, they direct message you. You say, "Okay, this looks good." You immediately start communicating with them on MTRO Pro because Furnish Finder doesn't gatekeep like Airbnb does. They allow you to communicate directly with your guests. So now you're texting through our platform to this person. You can email them if you want. You can show them your listing, or if that one doesn't work out, you can show them all of your other properties because you've got a web page that has what we call the personal property page. It's got your profile and all of that stuff. So you're communicating with them. They say, "Wonderful. The terms sound really good." You on your dashboard have a next step kind of process. And so the next step then becomes a background check. You push a button, it sends them the background check. You get a text message notifying you that that it's available. You look at that, you send them a lease, which by the way, as they filled out the application for the background check, it's also filling out the information for the lease. So
nice.
Is automatically filling out the information for the lease. And then the other piece that you have on your lease is all property driven. So that's anchored to your property that you've already uploaded into MTRO Pro. So basically the only thing you have to do is go in there and sign the lease and send it for signatures. Once that's done, it automatically goes to the payment. You've already set up the terms for the payment, like you have a 50% deposit, and then the remainder of that 3 days before they, check in, and then, the subsequent, the payments that follow after that. And you can set all of this stuff up through the platform, the payment processing, the communications. Let's say that they extend and they decide they're going to stay another 30 days. You can have the lease updated there. You can have that automatically change the smart locks for you, because I forget to change the smart locks all the time when they extend. So that was a big one for me. And then it automatically sends a message to the cleaner saying, "Hey, we have an extension here. Can you still take it?" And so all of that stuff is done through the platform. That's what it does.
What is the cost of this?
That's the part we're figuring out. Okay. So we have the beta group in right now. I can tell you this. We call it the end to end, right? And so all the things that I mentioned, where you get someone in, you're communicating, you're doing the background check, you're doing the leasing, you're getting the payment processing, you're communicating with the vendors. We knew that we had to make that available for everybody. So whether you have 1 unit or 100 plus units, you're going to get that. We know that another part of our payment structure is going to be that the big guy is going to help pay for the little guy. And then the last part of it is going to be that you as a onesie, twosie mom and pop person, you're only going to need a certain amount of tools. So our base price is going to be targeted for you based on that. But if you're like me and you're looking to get into co-hosting, or you have 100 plus properties where you have VAs and team members, that's where there's going to be that additional cost. So we are really trying to make the entry point for the little guy and really build our model to where the bigger guys help pay for the little guys.
What's your thought on somebody who has a short term but maybe wants to start getting their own bookings? Like, I want to start pushing my short term people into my booking system, but I don't have a good system for even that short term. You know, maybe it's one day, maybe it's a week. I don't know. Could I still use your software for that?
Sure. Yeah, we're looking at things there because two things that we know we have to kind of build in for is, like you talked about, they call it hybrid, right? Where they're doing short term during the high seasons and midterm during the lower seasons. And so we do have to account for that. And I think that the tool will be viable for that. There's also people that do short term that do still want a lease or some sort of background check. And so we'll be able to provide those kinds of tools for them.
I like the approach you're taking with the, because if you have one or two of these, right, you can't afford to pay. Like, a lot of times your cash flow is going to be, if you're, well, I can't speak for where you live or higher cost of living places, but like in Omaha, your cash flow with interest rates where they are, if you're buying a property, you're trying to operate as a midterm to kind of get around the short term and short term regulations and the long term headaches of having units and kind of getting that sweet spot of maximizing cash flow. It's hard to turn, like if you have to pay $100 a month for something and you only have one or two properties, like a lot of times you're like, I can't, like, this doesn't work because that's my profit or that's my cash flow a month that I'm, able to hopefully build toward, moving out of my place or getting out of my job or whatever. So I like the model you have where the tiered pricing. I think that's going to make sense for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, man, you have quite the story. This has been a very emotional journey for me in particular. But no, I'm super thankful that you shared all of that about everything that's gone on in your life.
Hey, Andre, the content's been great. It's been super emotional. It's so nice to finally get all this time with you besides having the quick phone calls we've had. But before we do wrap it up, we have a section that we famously call the OT with Owen and Ted. And we have a few questions that we will randomly throw at you. Sometimes we mix them up, sometimes we don't, but we like to keep you on your toes. But the one that we start off with is one that's been part of our podcast since we started the podcast, and that's our failing forward question. You want to start that one, Owen?
Yeah, so typically, guests come on and they are able to tell us about all the great stuff that, real estate and business has done for their lives, trials and tribulations, but typically somebody generally has something that didn't go according to plan along the way. And what we like to find out from you is, did you have anything in your work history, life in general, that didn't go according to plan, and maybe some lessons you learned along the way with that?
Oh, yeah. I guess I would say that as far as the real estate stuff goes, like, we thought we were going to do rent by the room. We thought that we were going to do a BRRRR strategy. We thought that we were going to do short-term rentals, and we just flipped and flopped all over the place when we first did that. And it cost us a lot of time. And I think that the time that we were trying to figure out doing that is what cost us on the interest rate. And I think, the lesson that I learned from that is those things all happen for a reason. I mean, we got into midterm rentals and it's been great. So, like, it was an accident that we got into midterm rentals, and it was because of trying these other strategies first and interest rates like hiking up as we were like flailing around. So
what do you think you would do if they came along and enacted some legislation that said you can't do short terms or midterm rentals? It's all long term or nothing. Like, do you think you could still operate that and make it turn out any cash flow at all? Would you try and just eat it? Would you sell? How would you pivot if legislation really, kind of came back and hit you in the face?
Yeah, I probably would sell and try to get into commercial, or I would look at whether long term was going to be a play. I think one of our properties would do well because of when we bought in and our percentage rate. So I think it would still cash flow as a long term, but the other one I don't think would. So I think that we would just have to sell that one out and like try to reinvest.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have to ask you. So you've lived in Denver for how long now?
Pretty much all my life.
When you have people that live in higher cost of living areas, so like for example, the Northwest, the Northeast, California obviously is famously expensive to live in generally, especially closer to the ocean. Do you guys ever think about moving to like Nebraska, or Iowa? Like, is that ever on your radar? Are you like, you know what, this sucks. I hate all the taxes out here. The people are keep taxing us to death, and all this stuff is really expensive. Are you ever like, why don't we just peace out and go to Nebraska or Iowa? Like, does that ever come up?
Owen's the future governor, but just he's
no, I'm genuinely interested in this. I've never asked anybody this before. Like, what do you guys ever even talk about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have family in Nebraska, and I have family in Oklahoma. We have like family in different places.
What part of
but
Nebraska?
Ogallala, Brule.
Oh yeah, way out there.
That's big in Colorado.
Yeah.
You pretty much.
Yeah.
Ollie's
is out there, right?
I don't know what that is.
Well,
I know Bayside is out there.
Restaurant Ollie's, and it's got more taxidermy.
That's not.
Isn't it?
No.
Okay, never mind. Where's that at?
I can't remember the town. Let's keep it on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I've actually had this question before, but I think it's like this: you're either investing in copper or gold or platinum. You're investing in that, you're paying that, but you're also getting paid at that rate. So I think it's all relative in terms of like what you're getting back for what you're investing in or what you could potentially get back, right? I mean, cost of living, sure. You have a place where rents are $1,000 and you paid, maybe 300,000 or 250,000 for it. Or here you're paying like 500 or 600, but you're getting like 25 to 35, maybe even 4,000. So I think it's all relative. And yeah, if we thought about moving anywhere, we would want to move somewhere where we wanted to go, right? We've talked about living part-time out of the country, in places that are expat friendly, and we've talked about like moving to some place that had a coast. So
yeah, I just my sister lived in Seattle for probably 25 years, and then basically had if you picked up their house and put it in Omaha at the time they moved here, it was probably $225,000. Like, it was split level, 4-bed, 2-bath, decent size, but it was just your average house. But it was in Bellevue, Washington, which was a really good school district, and they sold it for $1 million, like 1.1, something like that. Pieced out, moved here, pay cash for their house, live on a lake, like ballers, have a boat, the whole thing. Like, yeah, there's a trade off with the weather and the like activities and stuff like that. I'm just curious. Like, it depends on what's important to you and what you're willing to pay for.
Sure.
Don't sleep on Nebraska is all I'm saying. It's the state motto. It's not for everyone.
The good life.
Sorry. That might be Iowa.
Coming from the guy that lives in Iowa over here.
Yeah, I live in Iowa. All right. Well, that was that was great. Thank you for taking some liberties here with the questions.
Okay. So Andre, the next question I have, since he's trying to take it from me, I can tell, but the reason I asked this question is it was just recently I kind of discovered what my own superpower was, and when I used to think about this, I'm like, oh man, what's the thing that separates me from everybody else? And that took me, down a road, and it was our coaching programs that actually made me really deep dive into this. Yeah. And for me, it was, the power of community, bringing people together, networking was my superpower. But I really want to know what your superpower is and what you feel like kind of differentiates you from everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I would explain it kind of like far-sightedness, but also the ability to put pieces together and see what happens next. So like this logical progression of things, like seeing, I wouldn't say like seeing the future, but I don't know how to explain it. Being able to see.
Being a student future would be a real superpower, though.
That would be a real superpower,
Well,
but being able to see how the likelihood or the probability of something happening based on the things that are happening now, and having the ability to see further out than I think most people can.
wow.
So I didn't see my layoff, but I saw the things in the company that would take it to that point. I built the engine that company needed, right? And so that's just been a skill that I've developed over a long time, and it's become a superpower.
I love that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question in this way. So you've done a lot in your life. You've had some pretty traumatic things happen recently, job loss, health scare, big health scare. I'm sure it's made you think a lot.
Yeah.
Now that you've kind of re-examined things and had an opportunity to get kind of a second lease on life, what type of legacy do you hope to leave behind? If somebody picked up, a book that was a chapter in your life or the full entirety of it, what's that look like?
Yeah, I think the book would be about being mindful. I think the legacy that I want to leave for my kids isn't just financial. I think that that's important, but I think having them be mindful, being good people, being happy in life, and I've since changed my definition of happiness, right? I'm still pursuing these things like creating this app and doing these things, but the clarity that you talked about, right? The clarity is around really truly being happy through all of that and being able to enjoy every piece of that, spending the time with my kids, not saying when I get to this place, then I'll have this thing, right? The coaching has taught me that, but then also the health scare taught me that as well. Like, you don't have that time. Today is that time, right? And so I think the legacy that I want to leave for my kids is them understanding that, so that they know to enjoy this time, and to be able to be successful means to be happy with what you're doing and to be present with it. So, yeah,
Becoming more present. That's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
Love that.
Yeah.
Andre, where are you leaving the most money on the table right now? Like, where are things that you could be doing better, and how can you improve? And what advice would you give somebody else that's maybe in the same position?
It's a good question. So, where I'm leaving money on the table is, even though I'm juggling and managing the properties, and I'm building this app and I'm using the app, and the app is being guided by where I can actually save that money. And so what I figured out is that it is in the seasonality and where the pricing could be increased just a little bit. And so I know, like, I'm starting to see that by building this app. I'm starting to see, we're like, oh man, we really could be charging a couple $100s more now, a couple $100s more, that kind of thing. So the short answer is, leaving money on the table is not pricing right in my midterm rentals.
Yeah.
And where I can be improving that, I think, is in building this piece into the app to a degree that it'll tell me that, it'll adjust that for me. So in today's world, I just get to put those prices in for the seasonality. In tomorrow's world, we'll have AI helping us to determine what that is as we get more customers on board, more subscriptions, and that way we can see the whole market.
Yeah, I need that right now, because I use Price Labs for all my pricing on my short term. Yeah. I get rid of my short terms, and it's like, oh, I had a booking the other day, and it was just in between. It was a 1 day booking in between other ones. I normally don't allow 1 days, but I have a thing in there that says, oh, you can do this discounted 1 day booking between bookings. And
right.
And right now I'm getting $300 plus a night, but it dropped it down to $95.
Yeah.
And of course I got a house party rental. And I'm like, oh my God. And it kept me up all night. The cleaning bill was extra. It wasn't worth my time.
You lost money, right?
I lost headspace.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm rushing down there to check on it to make sure it didn't get damaged.
Yeah.
And then,
that's horrible.
And then of course they're like, oh, we forgot stuff. And then it's like, we need to come back in the house, 9 hours later. I'm like, oh God. So something that would be automated that could update the pricing and
dynamic pricing.
Yeah, I have it, but but it's the point of like, oh, I need to go log in. And Price Labs is a pain in the butt to go in and update and change. And I need to go in there and change it so it doesn't happen. And it's been 2 weeks and I still haven't gotten it done because everything else, I think it has more priority.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're in the same boat. So that's exactly. I mean, so because we don't have the subscriptions, again, we're releasing in June. Once we get the subscriptions, the people come in, we can see what that pricing looks like, and we can see it by areas. So
we'll definitely
pretty crazy.
Definitely share it with us when you get it done. We'll put it over on our socials for you.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, man, Andre, this has been quite the journey. I really appreciate you. We really appreciate you sharing your story. And I've learned a lot about how all this works behind the scenes. But is there any way that our audience or we can support you? Or is there anything you're looking for in your life or business? What's the best way to reach you? All the stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So right now we're really just trying to drive people to early access. We have one round of beta. We're selecting our second round of beta. So you could go to MTROPro.com, MTROPro.com, and you can sign up. If we pick you to be in our beta group, then you'll get the tool, like full access of the whole tool. And you could ditch all of your other tools for a while and also shape how the midterm rental tool is being built. But that's a limited time, right? Because then we're going to be going into our wait list. So if you sign up and you don't get selected, you would automatically be on our wait list. And for anyone who's on our wait list, they're going to get special pricing for a longer period of time. So that's going to be the lower pricing than you normally would pay for it, like off the shelf once it's live. So yeah. And then as far as like what we're looking for, right now we're going through a friends and family round of funding, and then we're going to be looking for venture capital or capital from investors that are in this space. We prefer to be the latter over the former, people that are in the space, that care about the space. And so we may be reaching out to some of those people that are already in our beta group that have 100 plus properties to invest in the tool and then kind of take off from there. So that's all the stuff that we're doing over the course of this next month. And then, within one short month, about 4 weeks and 4 days, we'll be out there on the market.
Oh man, I love it. All right. Well, this is going to air where you're probably going to have about 2 weeks left when you're catching this episode, listeners. So check that out. And MTROPro.com. Is that right? Is that the handle? And
that's right.
If there's a beta test spot left, make sure and jump on that, join the wait list, and get some good discounts. But with that, Ted, do you want to see us out of here?
Yeah, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate the conversations we've had. Your story is impactful. It was a great talk. I knew it would be. I look forward to see you on some more coaching calls, either if it's Jason or Andrews. I mean, one of the two I'm sure I'll see you on. But let's keep in touch. And then when this launches, let me know. And then let's touch base again here, 6 months to a year, and do another one of these and see how the business progressed and the people they invested. And hopefully you made some contacts with Jeff Hurst and Sarah Weaver, because I think those people will really help you with this business. And if you need those contacts, let me know.
100%. Thanks.
Yeah, man. But appreciate you. And with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of Dennis Bertrand and Ted Kaasch, you've been listening to the Kash Dash Show. I'm Owen Dashner, and this is Andre from Messy to Necessity to Solution, Galaviz. Signing off.
It's a new format, so we know. So
it doesn't flow like it used to.
Yeah, so it's a whole different flow.
We need what's that drug for
ecstasy?
Flomax. I think we need Flomax for podcast. I don't know where ecstasy just came right off of Ted's tongue. Okay, all right. I was more looking at the elderly version of drugs. You went right back into Club Kid.
Oh no!
All right, I'm going to take a stab at another attempt at this here.